closers are born. Get ready for high-energy stories, game-changing strategies, and the relentless pursuit of success. In each episode, we dissect the art of sealing the deal, celebrate triumphs, and explore the grit that defines salesmanship. This is the ultimate podcast for sales warriors ready to conquer the business battlefield. All right, that's it. We are here on another community with closers. So, what we want to do here is bring value to you guys, the viewers. We really appreciate you guys reaching out. We got a lot of stuff on here. So, go back if you're on Spotify, YouTube, or right here on Facebook. Go back, check them out from the beginning. So we got lessons, teaching, we got stories, we got all the stuff right here in Community with Closers. And tonight we have an amazing guest, my good friend, Jim Prom. He is amazing. We talked about huge projects. We talked about a lot of amazing stuff. He's been doing it, been in the game for a long time. Jim, what is up, my brother?
Good to see you, Pat.
Yeah, you too, man. So, dude, you are pretty much the closing king, because I remember the big project you were closing way back when, and still are. But what did you say? You were the estimator. What?
I'm a professional estimator. I've been building houses since 1986. So you really learn how to do takeoffs, material lists, and that type of thing, right? Yeah. So estimating is second nature to me. And I like to teach people a lot about estimating because I think it's a huge tool that some people don't understand, and they just want the quickest way to get a price. Well, sometimes the best way to build a foundation is with hard work.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, and that's it, man. I've seen so many things where people they get lazy, right? And they take the phone calls and they're like, "Ooh, I can book $500 jobs all day long," and then you see your average ticket just going like this,
right? Because
there's no relationship. And so, on this episode, guys, please share this out because Jim's going to be unpacking a lot of things with estimating, why we do it in person and not over the internet, not a lot of these ways of doing it. And so, I want to dissect that because, with holiday lights and then we have washing and, construction and all these things, right? And I think this is for multi-industry. So whether you're in landscaping, you're building decks or, lawn care, Christmas lights, whatever it may be, right? This is going to apply to you tonight because we want to give you the tools that are going to build your bigger, better house, right? So that's what this community is all about. And so let's dive into that, Jim. I want to go a little bit into your background. So I know you touched on construction, how long you've been doing it, just a little bit how you got into the soft washing game, real quick.
Sure, absolutely. Jim Prom. I started out life as a construction worker. I built mansions on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. I missed the snow. So we had moved back to Minnesota. Lisa reminds me of that every day. But so I've been building new construction since 1986. Okay.
Wow.
And then in 2008 or 2009, we had a really big hailstorm come through here, and every single buddy got a brand new roof, except the house is protected by trees. Mm-hmm. And they had all this black algae on them. And I'm like, what is that? So I start researching, and I come across AC's video that most people have seen where he's cleaning a roof. And in 2010, I thought, well, that's interesting. I talked to my roofing friends about that, and we just kind of put it in our back pocket and never did anything with it. But in 2012, I actually happened to be in Florida helping my friend with his insulation company. I was his general manager for a minute down there. And I was there for the very first SoftWashapalooza. Mm-hmm. So I was able to go to that. I remembered the video. I'm like, let me go check this thing out and see what it's all about. So I went down to that and got started in 2012, and I never did anything with it for like 4 or 5 years. I went to all of them except the second one. So I've been to all of them since then. But everyone always used to ask me, hey, Jim, are you doing anything yet? And I'm like, no, I just love you guys. I knew there was something there for me. It just didn't have a fit at the time, whether it was budget-wise or time-wise or whatever it was. So at one time, there happened to be a used skid available. So I just grabbed that up and started doing it part-time and around 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. I remember that, man. Hanging out with you, you know what I mean? Getting this first skid. That was epic. Those were the good old days, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, fast forward a little bit, obviously getting some large projects. I know you're doing some like restoration cleaning, there was unique cleanings, if you will, in there. So using your estimating background, what did that look like? Did you bring any of that in? I know you're doing it on site, but what did that look like for you?
Yeah, well, we've been a lot of limestone cleaning here in the area. We have a lot of that in our area. So
Yeah.
huge buildings, right? It's a block long and a block long and 50 feet tall. Well, you got to know how to price that. Are you just going to give them it's going to take me 5-day price? Or are you going to throw something off the cuff? Or are you going to actually put a wheel to the ground and measure the length and the height and count windows and look at pitfalls and hazards and what you might have to have? Do I need a lift? Do I not need a lift? I might have to team up with other subs to do window cleaning. Can I do that? So lots of those aspects come in when you're looking at a big whale of a project like that.
Yeah.
So, and I think, some people are like, well, I can do that project in 4 days. I want to make $2,500 a day. So they'll bid it at $10,000. Well, what if that's a $25,000 project? You just lost some money because you didn't take the time to bid it correctly.
Yeah. It blows my mind, man. I mean, so I know people that are talking about, shutting down because their prices, right? They need to increase their prices. We got inflation going on. We got rent going up. We got a lot of things at play. And if you don't have your prices locked in and you're not trimming the fat, 2 times a year throughout, your business, it can get really, hairy and scary there, because especially when you're hiring a sales team. And I know for me, when I first hired my first sales guy, I was like, oh boy, we got to raise our prices.
Right. And I talk to people all the time about that. And I think you've mentioned that before. If you start out 10 cents a square foot on vinyl siding, it's really hard to go to 30 cents the next year when you've got a team and admin and all those people in place. So I tell people all the time, charge like you have 7 people in your office. You got 4 techs on a truck, you got an admin, you got 2 salesmen. Charge like that from day one, because it's not going to be hard then to come back to Mrs. Jones next year and say, it's the same price this year, or whatever it is, or it's a penny and a half higher, whatever it has to be. But if you start at 10 cents, it's real hard to jump to 30. You'll get some new clients, but you'll lose all your old clients.
Yes. Dude, I know this. There's guys watching and they're like, man, you know what I mean? Like, I can't go any higher. I got the $99 guy. I got whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter what industry you're in. You're going to have those guys, right? That are going, they're undercutting. And you may not even know it. It may just be all in your head, right? And you don't know what your market will bear. And this, I know for me, and you can speak on this too, Jim, it's like, I was always the nice guy. And then, it doesn't say .org at the end of our websites. Like, we can't be giving this work away. But, I had elderly, lady, she's like, I'm on Social Security. I'm like, great. Can you do payments? You know what I mean? Like, I was locking things in, but I didn't know what I didn't know, right? This is back when I was writing my appointments in my little calendar book. And so, like you said, the next year, I'm like, we got to raise our prices. Well, I had to fire clients. And it was very scary because they were picky. You know what I mean? I hate to say this, but the reality is, if they are cheap, they're going to be picky, right? We all see it. And so when I started raising my prices, there was customers that were like, no way, you were at $175. You know what I mean? And this is obviously 18 years ago, but it was like, what the heck? But they weren't my client. They never were our client because of what our value, what we brought. So tell me a little bit about that. Have you run into that at all?
Yeah, you run into that sometimes when people are price shopping, but we really just try to set the value of what we bring to the table, right? And a lot of guys, when they're new to the business, they don't know their numbers. They don't know what they should be charging. So they go online and try to guess at it. Like, what should I be charging? And people mess with a lot of new guys. Oh, we can do that for 2 cents a square foot. Charge that. Or, when really you need to know how to figure your numbers, what your overhead is, and all those types of things to come at what your price is. Because my price isn't what your price is, and your price isn't what someone else's is. Our price is our price.
Yeah. I actually give my price list to our competition locally, right? I want them to see what's possible. And if I'm low in some areas, guess what? We're going up, baby. Because, that's the reality, is like, when I had Sam Brooks, he was our top sales guy, and it was fun. Like, you got to make a game out of it. You need to know what your market can bear. So every Monday I'd hit him with a new price list, fresh right off the printer. He's like, Pat, what are you doing? I was like, don't worry about it, right? 10%. And we didn't hit the ceiling until we were 30% higher on the prices, and no given that, oh, you're too high. And we were monitoring it. And you only do it with one, sales guy to see what you can do. Because if you don't, you're just playing by feel. And like you said, right, you got to know your numbers. You got to make sure that your cost, basically doing a job cost on your material. What do you want to make at the end, right? We've all heard 20%, 25%, whatever it may be. You got to figure out what you want out of the business, what it can bear, and then really shoot for it. So what are some ways, Jim, that you can do some job cost analysis?
Well, really, I mean, like you said there, you need to know your labors, what your chemical cost is, what your labor cost is. If you've got equipment payments, office, lights, utility, water, all the things that you have to write all those down and figure out a budget on what you have to make per hour at a break even, what you want to make for profit wise. And when you're doing a big commercial, you can throw it all out the window because you get so much more done on so much bigger square footage. You might make 20% every single day, but on a big commercial, you might make 50%, right?
Yeah.
And so you can share that with your team and bless them with some bonuses and stuff when you do that.
Yes. Yeah. And most jobs, 50 to 75% profit. He's got some nice, big, juicy jobs right there.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And really make sure though, right? I know guys that are like, I got one truck, my overhead is really low, right? Really dive into that. Like, what is your insurance, right? Pull that out, your shop, your rent. I mean, everything, right? We look at COGS, cost of goods doing business. So anything that associates with a job, your fuel, your tech pay, all that stuff, right? Even touch-ups come out of there, right? So we have like a little budget when we were running 7 trucks. We had a budget for repairs because outlets would, pop. We would replace outlets. So we had a little budget in there for repairs because you just don't know. Things happen.
Yeah. It's really interesting. If you're running a 20% profit margin and you have to run back to a job, it can cost you 3 to 5% of that job to run back and touch something up.
Yes.
So now you went to 17 to 15% profit just like that. So really let those guys stay an extra 30 minutes, make sure everything's dry. There's nothing running. There's nothing out of the ordinary. Walk with the customer, make sure everything's perfect before you leave. Because you get in a hurry and leave, you forget tools. You got bleeders that come out of the siding or something, and now we're coming back and we're losing money.
Yeah. And we share that too. We're very transparent. Like we tell our techs because it hurts their bonus. If they have to go back, just spend the extra 15 minutes, right? Doing a final walk around, making sure the customers are 100% satisfied, right? Because those little things. So you got damages and you have overtime. Those are like the 2 big things that suck in a small business. And you got to be checking in. You got to know your numbers. So I love what you're saying there, Jim, is like, know your numbers. Like just do a spreadsheet, break it all down, and then break it down per month, right? All the way down to per day, what that cost is.
Yeah. And overtime, as you know, can be a business killer, right? So you really have to monitor your overtime and make sure people aren't goofing around and wasting time to get that overtime because overtime will run you right up over 50% real quick. And if you're doing that, that'll put you out of business.
Yeah. And these are all things, guys, that we're talking about to help you scale, right? I've heard people that, have gotten hurt and they're like, man, I really wish I hired that technician or that salesperson, or that office manager, whatever it may be. But you want to make sure that you have the profit in the business to be able to hire these people because trust me, and this has been true for me, when you put people in place, the money comes. And that's been true for me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Everybody's scared to hire that admin. And you've got the best story that when you hired that admin, you bit the bullet, you made more money. And the same thing as for us, I was scared to put an admin in this chair. But her first week, she brought in $10,000 worth of work of stuff that I thought I didn't really have. And it was gone. They didn't call us back, but she followed up and did some wizardry, if you will, and pulled in $10,000 her first week in this chair. So that pays a lot of wages because we didn't think we had those jobs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it helps you focus in your zone of genius too. So like when you hire that office manager, they can be doing some marketing behind the scenes. They can make cold calls. They can follow up for you. There's a lot of things that office manager can take off your plate. So then, right, you can focus on sales. You can really dive into your numbers. And then you can put more boots on the ground and then start replacing you, right? I always say fire yourself out of a job because you don't need to have an office in your office, right? That thing should be running for you.
Right. Absolutely. And some of those admins can do some crazy stuff. I mean, they're really good with social media. They can help you out with that platform. She grabbed one of those invoices and went to our local beacon. That's a tax-based thing here, to make sure the person still lived there. I never thought of that. You've got a bid from someone, you just call them, right? She fires up the computer and makes sure they still live at the house.
Wow.
I never thought of that. So there's a pro tip for you that, you know, if you've got an old estimate, before you bother them, make sure they still live there and haven't moved, because it's a different conversation. I see that you guys moved. We need to stop out your new house and get some cleaning done there for you.
Love that. That's huge.
Yeah. It's huge. I never thought of it. That was all her. And
Isn't
it only takes
amazing?
a second for her to verify an address. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing too when you bring people in. I've learned so much over the years from people I brought in that had great ideas or brought things from other companies, right? And I was like, dude, we need to implement that. That's a great idea. And you're taking their ideas, you're giving them ownership, and then they can run with it, right? It's like, yeah, oh, that's great. Do that. Let's call and verify the addresses. Because like you said, it's a different conversation, right? It's not, hey, we want to do work again. It's, hey, I noticed you moved. How'd the move go, right? And you're checking in with them, and now we're building that relationship. Because when you're bidding things just over, you know, the internet or over the, you know, the phone, it's good. Don't get me wrong. I've seen jobs, you know, through some CRMs and these sales tools that bring in $2,400. But the problem is sometimes you don't build that relationship, right? Where it's just a number. It's just, I need to get it done right now. And then they never call you back. They forget about you, and then they go to the next company. So think about ways that you can get outside the box. And I know you've done this, Jim, where you're following up with clients, getting them your repeat rate, you know, when you're going out there.
Yep. We've done that for some of our commercial clients too, because when we first do a restoration clean, a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of chemicals. So on our limestone here in Minnesota, I tell them to budget for the next 5 years. Say our job is $25,000. I say put $5,000 away. So in 5 years, the money is there, and I will give you the same rate, because I know it's going to be easier cleaning. It's not going to be as aggressive. It might be one pass instead of 3 or 4, and they're all about it. And they've really bought into that, where they're saving and preparing for what's up and coming.
I will love that. That's huge, because you're setting the standard, right? Like, you have them there, keep that client coming back, and then you're sending out the cards. You're sending out birthday cards. You're building that relationship, so when they're ready to go, they're like, no other cleaning company did that.
Right. I just had a thought while we were talking about this. Sometimes we want to get in with the state, the county, that big commercial project. I found that knocking on doors and saying, can I do something for free? So outside of our library, they had 2 statues that were carved by a local artist, and they were filthy. They were dirty. I just said, hey, can I do a give back and clean these for you guys for free? And they let me. And then as soon as they were done, he was amazed. He said, hey, why don't you give me a bid on the library? So that was a $6,000 job. And then why don't you give me a bid on this government building and this government building? And we did 6 figures for the guy off of a free cleaning. Yep. And we still do work for him today.
Love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to get your foot in the door.
Yep. However you can do it.
Yeah. So Lee Ireland right here. Many times the prospect's goal is about the money. I let the client know that the money is not the goal. The goal is letting them know what I can do, the level of quality that I'm going to give them for that money. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's you know, setting what your value is, whether it's, you know, everyone's got wrapped shirts and wrapped trucks and they go to school, blah, blah, blah. But how we set ourselves apart is that we're educators. You know, we're teaching, we're training, we're all over the country helping people out. And our local competitors are not doing that, right? They're not stepping out and helping other people grow. They're just trying to grow themselves. Yeah. So, and one other thing too about, you know, the money is, I always tell people, sell like you don't need the job. Sell like you have $1 million in the bank, because you come across completely different when you don't act like you need the job. Please, 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 please. They know, and they're going to cut you, you know, way down. So if you come across confident and you got money in the bank and you don't need this job, it's just a nice conversation, build a relationship, get that job, go to work.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like, if you think about our tickets, right? Residential tickets, low item ticket, right? Because we're talking, roof cleaning, house washing, driveway concrete. We're not talking $15,000 crawl space. We're not talking, $15,000 roof replacement. So this is something that, when you're going into a home and you're building that value, they want, not everybody's got, $5,000 for a house wash and roof clean and everything, but you're educating them on, not about the price. Don't let price get in the way of me helping you and your family, right? Because your home is your largest investment. And then you talk them off that edge and you walk them through. So, if you guys go back to the beginning of the podcast, we talk about getting past the logical part of the brain and going to the emotional part. Because the emotional part, for me, what I found is that, their house is changing color. They might have got a nasty grant from the HOA, right? I want to go out to that homeowner and I want to build that relationship and tell them why we're different, because we don't just come in pressure wash. Like today, I sold a car and I went and he was talking about pressure washing his house. And I said, oh, you got that blue chalky siding? He's like, yeah, man. He's like, I just bought it like 2 years ago. And the, realtor had it pressure washed and it looks like Zorro showed up in the back. And I said, yep. I was like, well, we got, a product for that. You know what I mean? And this is why we do it. He's like, man, that's awesome. But it's educating the customer and that person in a loving way, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to love your customers. You can't be in it for the money because that will come across in everything you do. So the money will come as you hone your tools and become sharper at the sales process, but you just need to start with the basics. I tell people, if you're in a cookie cutter community where every house is the same or they have 3 models, well, great. Maybe you'll have to measure those 3 models up and you could price them all the same and have the conversation. But I still like to go out there and see what the pitfalls are, see what my guys are going to need. Are they going to need the 40-foot ladder? Are they going to need Tyvek? Is there a koi pond? Do we have water? Is there no water source? I mean, there's 100 things to look for that you can't do on it's $697. You have to go out to the site, especially if you're just getting started in business.
Yeah, especially if you're running multi-crews, because, man, you're going to run into a whole slew of things. The technicians are going to be mad because they're like, I can't do the job. There's no water. You know what I mean? Like, it goes on and on. You want a seamless customer experience. So I want to roll back a little bit because, how important is it for a price list and how do you scale this thing that we call soft washing, right? So let's dive into the price list and how this all ties everything together.
Yeah. Price list makes it easy for your salespeople to know what to charge. In some states, apparently it's illegal. Not illegal. It's legal that you have to have a price list. You have to have a written price list in some states.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's here, but I've heard that in other states before. So, but it makes it simple and you can show your competition the price list, your customers the price list. But it's so much easier if you're not guessing or changing your pricing from job to job to job to job. Mm-hmm. If your vinyl pricing is 32 cents, it's that across the board, whether it's a shack or a McMansion, right? There may be some other multipliers in there for complexities or height or lifts or whatever, but basically your price is your price per square foot, no matter if it's an outhouse or McMansion.
Yep. Yeah, we got that good old PETA factor, right? Pain in the arse.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, you got to have that in there. But it's so important because, I've been to so many business owners, places, and whether they're working from home or they have an office, I'm shocked, man, that their price list, guess where it is?
In their head.
In their head every time. Or have a price list. I'm the owner. I can do whatever the frig I want. Right. And I'm like, no, you can't. And so I got to lay the law down because a lot of people, they go out there and they're real fast. They get in and their quotes, man, are less than 30 freaking minutes. And I'm like, what just happened here? You know what I mean? And it blows me away. It's like, we need some discipline. And so that's where it's like, no, and don't get me wrong, guys. I did this, right? Like we all have done it where it's like, you go out there, you're like, I know this house. I've bid this house 4 million times and I don't grab the wheel and I don't do the thing, right? But that one little thing might lead to you not getting the sale because you didn't follow your own system. So you have to build out your system. And I know, Jim, you've done an amazing job with your system. And, with me, I built my system to make it easy so my 12-year-old kid can go out and measure some properties.
Right. Absolutely. And people need to understand that, some of the software is right on, some of it's a mile off, but what works every time is when you're there with a tape measure and a wheel. So that works every time.
I always tell people, because this, people watch, the neighbors watch. If you just go out and you show up, they're like, who's in my neighborhood? They're like, even when I'm throwing clip flyers, they come out to the driveway and I'm looking in my rearview mirror and they're picking that thing up and they're like, oh, okay. But they do. Everybody watches. And there's an amazing quote from Walt Disney. And it's like, if you're going to do something, put on a show, right? People are paying you. It might be a free estimate, but guess what? That's built into my quote because I know I'm going to close the deal every freaking time because I'm putting on it. I'm putting on this beautiful presentation that is like a work of art, where I park my car, right? To like how I go and I knock, right? Like all these steps is for a reason, because I tracked what I was doing and could I be better the next time? I always ask myself that. Did I bring enough value to that customer? Did I serve them at a high level, or did I just want to get that sale? Or was I, thinking about the office and I was thinking about a fire I had to put out, whatever it may be, right? It's a lot. Sales is a lot, but you have to, as a business owner or that, territory manager, sales rep, whatever you're selling, you got to clear your mind and you got to go in there with a servant's heart and then figure out what they need, right? Not what you think and what you're pushing onto that homeowner.
Yeah. People want to be able just to fire an email out or a phone call and give them a price. It's so much better to show up there and walk around the house and identify different situations that you can take care of, help them out. And almost every single time a neighbor comes out, and now you've got that soft introduction as well. So by going to the job, you have the opportunity to make sure you're going to be efficient, but you also have the opportunity to have them introduce you to other clients. And it could be 6. They can have 6 great neighbors that I had to talk to Jerry and talk to Ben and, talk to all these people.
Yep. There's a lot. So Morgan Perry right here, he's like, but commercial changes, right? It changes a little bit with commercial sales. And it does. 100%. You got professional buyers. We're more leaning into getting your system down for residential right now, even though residential is a little slow, right? And people are picking up on commercial, which is good. But commercial is a whole different animal. That's right. And I know, Jim, you've done a lot of commercial. If you want to speak a little bit to commercial work and how that kind of varies.
Yeah. And some people heavily discount commercial because you might be there for, multiple days and you're doing a lot of square footage. So they'll really discount that to get that job. I was having a conversation when we first started bidding limestone because I was at around $1 a square foot on that. And a friend of mine in Michigan said, dude, we're doing that for $3 and $4 a square foot. Same kind of project exactly. And I thought, well, I can't get that. He goes, yes, you can. So I had a negative mindset, but at $1 a square foot, we were making a boatload of money. So in my mind, I don't need to do $2, $3, or $4 a square foot for that type of cleaning, but I also wouldn't do it for 10 cents a square foot either.
Yeah.
So again, knowing your numbers, what you want to make, it's really nice when you can go out and hustle for a couple days and make 20 or 30 grand, because that could take you all month to do that on residential cleaning.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, right? You're buying in bulk, you're selling in bulk. So you're on multiple week projects, and that's where you can really bring in that bulk pricing. And that's what I always tell people. I like to reward my customers, right? So I pass the savings on to them because they entrusted us with their portfolio. And these are like the verbiage. When you get into commercial, there's a whole different thing. And I was telling this actually, I was on Ron Musgrave's podcast the other day, and we were talking about commercial pricing, and you need to know the lingo. You gotta educate on it. And so I was at a trade show for property managers, and we were talking about CapEx and like all the funding and like all the accounting and when the checks come in and what that process looks like. Well, I by accidentally like kind of snuck into their training. I was at the event, but I snuck into their training. And I was like, this is gold. Like I was sitting in the back row. I'm like learning about, capital expenditures and what they do in their industry, because I wanted to be an expert in their industry, because I'll go to them now and be like, hey, were you at the last meeting? Did you hear about that? And they're like, Yeah. What do you mean? And then so I'm like, oh, you didn't hear about that, or whatever it may be. And that got me into a lot of them because again, you are building relationships, but you also need to know the lingo so you're not just blowing smoke, right? They'll know.
Right. Absolutely. And a big part of the commercial is to build that relationship and get on their ACH payment program where they electronically pay you, because commercial can be a long time, 30, 60, 90, 120 days, right? Now you're their bank. So you need that residential cash flow and then the profits in the commercial. But when you work with a team of people and have electronic transfer, we've had them start the funding process when we start the project. They know they're gonna be happy with us. So we're lining up our hoses on the last day and the check's hitting the bank.
Yep.
Doesn't happen all the time, but it's fairly quick when you do repeat work for commercial contracts.
Yeah. It's so good. And when you have that relationship, man, I've had people just straight up pay me because they pay on certain days, right? And the project was after that day. They're like, we'll just, boom, it was the 5th, $120,000 hit the bank account. We weren't even started the project yet. But that's the value in it. It's like, sometimes they have to get these things done, or it's the end of the year, it's fourth quarter, and they're like, we don't want to lose our budget. Whatever it may be, you got to know the lingo.
Right.
And so, educate yourself on whatever you're going in. It could be new construction cleaning. It could be, multifamily, HOA. I mean, boom, 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 right? Like we would build that stuff out and we would figure out which ones we were going after. And we wouldn't go after everything.
Right. And if the new guys want to start chasing commercial, they got to realize that they need commercial auto insurance. Your personal policy is not going to work.
Yeah.
Your work comp, you might have to have a multi-million-dollar liability policy. Instead of one, they might want 2, 3, 10. Who knows? It's not very expensive, but you have to be ready for that to bump up your coverage to get that job.
That's right.
So that's a big deal too, having all your ducks in a row.
Yes. Yeah, because again, these are pro buyers. They know they're looking at your stuff. And if you're not qualified, you only have one truck, it doesn't look like it's going to get through a month-long project, they're probably not going to pick you, right? And they're going to tell you your prices were what?
They were way too high. They were insane.
Exactly. Yep. Right. It's funny how they do that. But we have a question here too. What are the percentages you would pay somebody? So that's a great question because people they're like, I don't know, residential, commercial, what would you pay somebody? Would you give them a base pay plus a production, a bonus, or just straight commission? Yeah. What are some good ways to do that?
All states are different, of course, because some can pay percentage, some can pay production. We have to pay payroll. So they have to have an hourly. And then we have a bonus structure, 1, 2, 3, 4%, right? Assistant tech, lead tech, there's a different structure, completing so much time. There's different ways they can earn up 4%, And then in Minnesota, you're going to have some unemployment. So hopefully their salary and their bonuses and their unemployment will make them want to return the next year, because it is a short season up here. We got 6, 7 months if we're lucky. So, the guys can be off for 4 or 5 months. But that's a great opportunity to find the guy who wants a ski bum in Colorado or missionary in India or whatever they want to do. They've got time off and they've got some money coming in so that they can do those things. So find out with your CPA how you can pay. We pay a base wage, plus we have a bonus structure in place.
Love that. Yeah, we got some guys on here. They got $5 million and a $1 million workers' comp, $1 million CA. So this is all good stuff. You need to have, good insurance, auto, workers' comp, you know what I mean, and general liability in there. Yeah. And they're going to ask.
Yep. And when you're sending out your proposals, here's a big tip for you guys. Send your W-9 and all your insurance documents with your package. It just saves time because some people don't send that at all. And here you are sending it with it, right? Yeah. Makes you look more professional. And many times you can actually help them write the scope of work. And guess who's going to get the work when you help them write the scope? You are.
I love it. Yep. Yeah, we do a lot of unsolicited bids and we put the bid right into their budget. So that's nice too.
Right.
But that's good stuff, man. All right. So, I like to keep these nice, short, sweet, to the point. We've covered a lot. We're at 35 minutes. So we got 5 more minutes to add some more value here. And so, when we're reverse engineering this, and I'm thinking, for folks watching or listening, what are some key takeaways that we can execute on depending on where they are, newly out, what does that look like? And what advice would you give, Jim, for somebody maybe that doesn't have a price list right now and some executables from this?
Follow some guys and try to get a mentor that you trust, right? They've been in the business for a little while, that know how to help you figure out what your pricing should be. And remember, if you're a solopreneur on the truck, yeah, you could do a job for $100 and be happy with it. But if you have a business, that job might need to be $1,000, so you really have to know your numbers. You have to have a CPA or an accounting firm to help you with your numbers, because some people get into trouble by not paying taxes, not doing the right things with work comp or payroll. So the biggest piece of advice I always give people is get a CPA, accountant, and a mentor or a coach.
Yeah. It's gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. If you can cut the learning curve right there, that's where it's at, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's lots of, trade shows and stuff you can go to, and you might get some information. It's kind of steered away from the here's how we do it and here's how we charge to more of here's how I did it and take my class, So really, if you find someone that's a good mentor that you can call up, say, hey, I got this building and I'm not sure where it should be, or I don't even know how many square feet it is. Find someone that can help you with that, right? I field those calls all the time, and happy to help those guys get those jobs.
Love that. Love that. And so for somebody that, is maybe wanting to get into the sales game with hiring salespeople, what would you say that looks like for hiring somebody?
Well, DISC very well, right? So we have to have the right person in the right seat. So we need to make sure that we've got a DI if we want a salesperson. We don't want a C that's so critical and actually they're rolling through our numbers trying to figure out, what we're charging. Hey, no, that's why we get a DI out there who can sell. They just know how to sell. They can visit their C, their I, or the S, to communicate with the customer. But you have to make sure in all places on your bus, you have the right people in the right seats. And they might be a good fit for your company. They're just in the wrong seat. So you might have to move them from, maybe a lead tech is a better salesman and you just didn't know it, right? Mm-hmm. So just be aware, be monitoring all the time, and talk to your people. Those weekly team meetings that you're having, making sure that everyone's happy. If there's cancer, right? If there's gossiping behind the scenes, that's going to put a cancer in your business. It's going to kill it. So you have to make sure you guys are communicating all the time, so that you can win.
Yes. So good. Yeah. You got to be a coach of your team, moving players around as you see, their fit, and you got to raise leaders in your sales organization. You just got to level them guys up, and it's always training. And so that's another thing that we get back at, when I was traveling the country, going to businesses and flipping businesses, a lot of them weren't doing training. They were letting the guys come in and they were grabbing the trucks and they were going out, and the owner was never there. And I was like, man, you got to have that, communication and accountability every morning. We do last man in. There's no man left behind. My guy's going to be there, right? At the end of the day, to slap him on the butt and send him home. You know what I mean? Say, good job. Not really, but right? Everybody needs to feel appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do build that company culture. You know that. You take the guys out and celebrate the wins. Let's go go-karting. Let's go fishing. Let's go whatever it is. Whatever your guys are into, make sure you guys do that, because they'll never leave. If you feed into what's important to them, and it's not always about money, right? A lot of it's the free time. Hey, Pat, I've always got to have Saturday and Sunday off. My family's number one. Don't ask me to work Saturday. Then you just got to respect that, right? Because that's that one guy's thing. He needs that family time,
Yeah. And then you start taking away. You're like, I need you there. I need you to, make this money. He's going to be out as quick as you said that.
Right. Absolutely.
Nice, man. Well, awesome, dude. This was so good. I know the viewers got a lot of value, a lot of comments, and a lot of engagement. So thank you guys all for tuning in. Guys, reach out to Jim. Jim, where can they reach out to you at?
They can find me at on the web, of course, info@spraymyroof.com if they want to send me an email. Info, info @spraymyroof.com. Or they can find my phone number, 507-381-4597. Just tell me who you are so I know, because, I've got people calling me all the time, and I help a lot of people figure out how to estimate square footages and how to bid stuff. And I'm really good at that. I've been doing it for almost 40 years.
Yeah. No, we appreciate you, Jim, and all you do, man. You've been in it a long time at all the events and just helping so many people. So thanks for that, man. And guys, if you really got some value out of this, we appreciate it. If you could share it out, send some likes, some love. We appreciate it. We're going to be bringing you some awesome stuff. We're just getting started here at Community with Closers. And so, Jim, thank you again, man. We'll definitely have you on for another session because, this is where, people really kind of lack in the sales department, the numbers, tracking it, doing all the things. So we really appreciate you.
Right. Absolutely. I'd love to come back and I could take somebody through how we bid a project because I've got slideshows laid out of, like you said, we park in a certain spot. I start my measuring walking to the front door. I put my wheel down in the driveway and I measure to the garage. Then I go to the front door like you do. But I mean, I have a slideshow of how I measure an entire property and what you come up with numbers. I'm counting windows, counting everything, so, nice. And people need to know that, right? So we'll help them with that the next time we get together.
I love that. We'll do it, man. Let's make it happen for sure.
All right, Pat. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right, everybody. Thank you again for joining us here. Community with Closers, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday. So tune in. Make sure you put on your calendars, and we'll see you next week. All right. Thanks again, Jim.
See you. Thanks, Pat.
See you.